Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I'm going to step away from the podium for a moment to try this. Can you all hear me in the back?
Yeah.
So I don't need the mic is what you're telling me. You can hear me fine?
Yeah.
All right. If that's okay with everyone, I'd rather stand here and work the presentation. So if that's okay with you, I'll proceed. Well, again, good morning, everyone. Thank you. For those of you that have never been to Brownsville or been to this area, welcome. I'm glad you got here as fast as you could because from the presentations I've heard today, this is a great place to live. This is a great place to live a family. This is a great place to enjoy all the entrepreneurial spirit that this community and this region has. And more importantly, this is where it's happening in the state of Texas over the next few years. So thank you. Let me start with the presentation. A little bit about this. First and foremost, the Port of Brownsville is a public entity. We are our own political entity created under the Constitution of the state of Texas. Most ports in the state of Texas are individual governing entities. Some of them, like Galveston, is owned by the city. You have others that may be county involvement. But most ports in Texas are created under the water code as a navigation district. And one thing about Texas, whether you know this or not, we are a maritime state. When people think of Texas, they think of oil and gas and cows. Well, guess what? Maritime is a significant part of what fuels the state's economy. We're about $600 billion a year of the gross domestic product of the state of Texas. It is significant. In fact, the state of Texas is the #1 maritime port in the United States in terms of where cargo originates or where cargo is destined to. Just a tad ahead of California. And so we're a maritime port. We've got about 20 deep water seaports, 450 miles of coastline, and the infrastructure necessary to support that logistics, multimodal infrastructure is here to help support the growth in the maritime industry. But in Brownsville, I'm going to focus on Brownsville. We are the largest land-owning public port authority in the United States. We own 40,000 acres of land. Now, that doesn't mean we have 40,000 acres of developable land, but there's still a lot of growth to be had. And more importantly, what this does for us as a port is, one, we can insulate ourselves from encroachment of incompatible uses. You start to see a lot of this happening in the maritime environment, whether either it's commercial, especially with residential growth becoming neighbors. And so we have the ability to insulate our industry here from those kinds of conflicts, not only currently, but well into the future. And lastly, because we own all this much land, environmental stewardship is very important. The majority of our land will never be developed. It will stay the way it is today. However, because we own so much land, we also have a lot of mitigation value to that land. So when we have a project that we're working with and it's going to have some environmental impact, we have the land necessary to mitigate that impact. So those two features serve us greatly, and I'm sure there's a lot of ports in the country they wish they had that opportunity. The other thing is we're the only deep water seaport directly on the U.S.-Mexico border. You know, if you're doing it here, guess what? It's the only place in the world that it's happening right now. And when I say directly on the border, is mean we are seamlessly, with the exception of the river, on the U.S.-Mexico border. We're not a few miles up the coast. You know, we're not, within driving distance of 200 miles up the coast. We are on the U.S.-Mexico border. And that really speaks to a lot about what the port does and the port's history and everything that goes into supporting the economy on the frontera between the U.S. and Mexico. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll tone it down so I'm not screaming. Can you hear me better? Okay? All right, fine. The other thing, too, is that we are a large bulk break port, and that meaning is we move commodities in large quantities, both liquid and then dry, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And the other thing, too, is that we are a significant, as most ports, we have a significant role in the region. It's the port of Brownsville, but it's not about Brownsville. It's about South Texas and northern Mexico for us. That regional impact is felt from here to San Luis Potosí and all over the Rio Grande Valley. And then only because SpaceX, have you heard about them? So guess what? We'll claim it as being home port to SpaceX. So when you talk about multimodality in terms of moving commodities, hey, we're even going to be a space cargo at some point. So that's great for us. A little bit about, when I describe a port, what is a port? For me, it's really a multimodal logistics platform that we can offer shippers or customers every form of transportation to move their product into an area or out of an area. How do we do that? Well, if it's ocean going, how do we connect Brownsville to Asia, to Europe? We trade with every continent in the world except Antarctica. And how do we do that? Through water connectivity, and that is to the fact that we have a deep sea port here that can do that. But we also have the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway that connects Brownsville all the way to the panhandle of Florida along the coast, and at New Orleans, and at Mobile to Middle America. And an example I like to use, well, how do you do that? How do you connect Pittsburgh, for example, Pittsburgh area to Brownsville by water? Well, one of the ways we do it is through the inland waterway that connects to the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway at New Orleans that comes all the way to Brownsville. U.S. Steel, an iconic U.S. company, has been using our port for 30 years. And what they do is they ship by barge, by river barge, down the river system all the way to Brownsville on the coast, a high-grade, almost like a stainless steel coil for a company in San Luis Potosí that's in the automobile industry, that's in the white appliance industry, that's in the medical instrumentation industry. And that is their customer. Well, that's how we connect Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area to Brownsville by water. So we have water connectivity, the interstate system, transportation, road connectivity. And you know what? It's getting better. In fact, we're still the most populated area of the United States that still does not have direct interstate connectivity. It's getting there, but it's not there yet. And when it's all said and done, guess what? The interstate comes right to our front door at the Port of Brownsville, which what will be badged as I-169, right to our front door. Portions of it have been built in the area, but the direct connectivity that's necessary to link us to I-37, for example, or to I-35, it's coming. It hasn't been completed, but it is coming to the area. So we have much better road connectivity than we've ever had. Rail connectivity, you can move more volume by vessel than any other means. And on a vessel, not only is it cheaper and more environmentally friendly, but you can move large volumes. Well, the next largest means of moving large volumes of commodities is going to be rail. And we have rail connectivity. In fact, we own our own railroad, the BRG, or the Brownsville Rio Grande International Railway. It's a short line service that exists solely to support port customers. But more importantly, it connects us to the Class 1s. And here, for northbound traffic, it'll be Union Pacific or BNSF. But for us, more than anything, it's the southbound connection. And that is with Kansas City, Southern New Mexico, which I think just completed its acquisition with Canadian Pacific. And if I'm not sure, it's going to be Pacific Kansas City Railway or something like that. But the point is that we have connectivity to Mexico. We have the only rail crossing east of Laredo, commercial rail crossing here. And so that's a big deal for us because 85% of our loaded car moves are going south. Possibly closer to 90% of our loaded car moves are going south. And why is that? Because of the business we do, our customers in the area of Monterrey. A basic example is our #1 customer on the dry bulk side is a company called Ternium de Mexico. They're the premier steel provider to Mexico. Who are their customers? The automobile industry, the white appliance industry, construction industry. But where does the feedstock of the steel that goes to the mills to produce that product for their customers come from? Well, guess what? It comes through the port of Brownsville. For Ternium alone, last year we shipped 4.6 million tons of slab, only slab, which are huge pieces of steel that then go to the mill, then they mill down for their customers' use. And this year will probably exceed 5 million, and in 2020, after 2023 and 24, we'll peak at about 6 million tons. 80% of the steel that they need to operate the Pesquería plant in Monterrey comes through the port of Brownsville. Right now it's Brazil, our #1 trading partner. But we're seeing it from Vietnam, we're seeing it from Antwerp, we're seeing it from other parts of the country, of the world, coming in to support their operation. But the same thing is on the liquid bulk. We're not in the refining business, we're not in the chemical business, but we do move a lot of refined products through the port, primarily ultra-grade, low sulfur grade diesel, premium gasoline, jet fuel, lubricants, latex, paraffin, wax. That moves through this port. And so, the rail, the vessel, and just as important, the pipeline connectivity assists us in being able to move those volumes, not only domestically, but into Mexico. We have pipeline connection to Cadereyta outside of Monterrey, Burgos. Of course, we've got pipeline connection to Matamoros as well. So those commodities that move by pipeline are moved very efficiently. But the same thing holds true for moving them by rail as well as by truck. Trucks are our friends. We do. Last year, I think we had about 440,000 trailer truck moves at the port of Brownsville. And so we need that transportation resource, and that's why we need the infrastructure resource to make all of these pieces work. In fact, one other thing I'll tell you is that no other U.S. port moves as much steel into Mexico as we do. But I'll qualify that. I'm not talking about finished product. I'm talking about the feedstock that goes to produce the finished product, then comes across the river at Laredo as a washing machine, or in Eagle Pass as an automobile, or what have you. And so it starts here. It gets finished over there, then it crosses back as a finished product. So again, what is our place in the border economy and the region? A lot of what we do is focus on supporting that effort on the Mexican side. The economies are so integrated. Mexico makes Texas what? The 10th largest economy in the world because of that trade relationship. We are a public port. And by that I mean is that we don't operate the waterfront facilities. We own them, but we make them available to the user. So we are a landlord port. That is our model. How do we make a lot of our revenue? By leasing the land to the businesses that are there. Whether it's businesses that have built their facilities there, or businesses that use our docks or our storage patios. That's how we make our money, the majority of our money. The other one comes from the services, the movement of cargo, whether it's wharfage over the water, dockage, storage on the patios, rail car moves. That's the business part of moving cargo in and out of the port that helps fund us. We have more than 1 million square feet of covered storage inside the port, and about 650 feet of that is ours. The rest of it belongs to some of our tenants, and they're actually developing more. And we don't want to compete with them. Our storage is used to drive vessels that come in and drop cargo on the port. So we give them 30 days free storage in the dock or 30 days free storage in the shed. It's all about getting it moved and getting replaced as quickly as you can. Our tenants are the ones that provide the long-term storage capabilities to their customers through storage. Oh, and by the way, if anybody here is in the warehouse business, from what I understand, not only us, but everywhere in the region, warehouses are in big demand. So we can surely use a few at the port as well. The other thing too is that we have the ability, because we are a large landowner, to expand our storage capabilities for outdoor storage. Big commodities, the slab, for example. We're big into the blade business. We move a lot of wind components through this port. But so we can expand storage areas very quickly. And right now we have about 3.5 million square feet of outdoor storage that we call patios. I got a call one time from somebody who was doing a story on freight and started to question me about patios? You have patios? And I finally caught on, no, we're not talking about patios with the picnic chairs and the umbrella. We call them patios. These are storage areas. Oh, okay. So just in case anybody wasn't clear on what patios are.